Welcome to my channel HFY Universe. The alien woman grabbed Noah's wrist with enough force to stop his heartbeat. Careful. The word barely escaped her lips. But the fear in her voice was impossible to miss. Noah froze. For 6 months aboard the Horizon Drift, he had never seen Lyra afraid. Angry. Annoyed. Frequently. Dangerous. Absolutely. Afraid. Never. Yet now her silver eyes were locked on his hand. On the damaged section of her chest plate. On the cracked piece of armor he had been trying to repair. The ship trembled. Warning sirens echoed through the corridor. Somewhere in the distance, another explosion shook the hull. But neither of them moved. "What's wrong?" Noah asked quietly. Lyra swallowed. For a moment she looked like she wanted to answer. Then she shook her head. "Nothing," Noah sighed. "That is the least convincing lie I've heard all year." Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. The Horizon Drift was under attack. Again. And if the situation wasn't already bad enough, Lyra suddenly looked as though she were hiding something that terrified her more than the enemy fleet outside. Noah slowly pulled his hand away. "Fine." Relief flashed across her face. Then the emergency alarm changed. A new warning echoed through every corridor. "Reactor failure imminent. Reactor failure imminent. Reactor failure imminent." Both of them looked toward engineering. Their expressions hardened instantly. Because everybody aboard knew what that warning meant. The ship wouldn't survive a reactor collapse. Neither would the crew. Noah grabbed his toolkit. "Come on." The two sprinted through the corridor. Smoke drifted from damaged ventilation shafts. Crew members rushed past them. Some carried weapons. Others carried injured civilians. Fear filled every corner of the ship. The pirate attack had lasted only 11 minutes. And already the Horizon Drift was dying. Noah turned a corner. Almost collided with a fleeing engineer. "What happened?" The engineer looked terrified. "The reactor. What about it?" "It's gone critical." Noah didn't stop running. Neither did Lyra. Within seconds they reached engineering. The scene inside was chaos. Red warning lights flashed. Steam exploded from ruptured pipes. Technicians shouted over each other. The fusion core pulsed violently at the center of the chamber. A countdown floated above it. 7:42. Noah's stomach dropped. 7 minutes. That was all they had left. The chief engineer looked exhausted. When he saw Noah enter, his expression became desperate. "Thank God." "What's the situation?" The chief pointed toward the reactor. "The coolant network failed." Noah frowned. "All of it. Every backup system." That made no sense. Systems didn't fail like that. Not simultaneously. Not without a reason. Noah rushed toward the control terminal. His fingers flew across the display. Diagnostic reports filled the screen. Then he found it. And his blood ran cold. Habitat. Someone had deliberately disabled the safety systems. This wasn't battle damage. Someone aboard the ship had planned this. "That's impossible," muttered one engineer. Noah pointed at the screen. "No, it's not." The room fell silent. Everyone stared. The evidence was obvious. Manual overrides. Security locks. Deleted logs. Somebody wanted the reactor to explode. The realization spread fear throughout engineering. Because a pirate attack was one thing. A traitor among the crew was another. The countdown continued. 6:58. 6:57. 6:56. The chief engineer spoke quietly. "Can we fix it?" Nobody answered. The radiation levels around the reactor were already lethal. Entering the chamber meant death. Every engineer knew it. Every technician knew it. The room became silent. Noah studied the data. Then he took a deep breath. "Yes." Heads turned. Several crew members stared at him as if he were insane. The chief engineer blinked. "Yes. It can be fixed." Hope appeared. Briefly. Then vanished. Because everyone understood the next question. Who goes in? Silence. Nobody volunteered. Nobody even moved. The reactor chamber looked like a doorway into hell. Noah picked up his toolbox. The chief engineer's eyes widened. No. Noah shrugged. Somebody has to do it. You'll die. Maybe. The answer horrified everyone, especially Lyra. She stepped in front of him. No. Noah raised an eyebrow. No. No. She folded her arms. You are not going in there. Noah laughed. Then who is? She didn't answer. 'Cause there was no answer. The countdown reached 6 minutes. The reactor pulsed brighter. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Every second mattered. Noah looked at her. For a moment neither spoke. Then he smiled. The same stubborn smile she had seen 100 times before. Try not to miss me. Before she could stop him, Noah stepped toward the chamber. The heavy blast door opened. A wave of heat slammed into the room. Several crew members instinctively stepped backward. The air itself seemed dangerous. Radiation alarms immediately activated. Noah walked forward. One step. Then another. Then another. The door closed behind him. And suddenly the room became very quiet. Everyone watched through reinforced observation glass. Inside the chamber, Noah looked tiny. Tiny compared to the reactor. Tiny compared to the danger surrounding him. Tiny compared to the impossible task ahead. Yet somehow he kept moving. Lyra stared through the glass. Her jaw tightened. Her hands formed fists. A young technician noticed. You care about him. She didn't answer. The technician kept watching. You really care about him. Lyra remained silent. Because the truth frightened her. She cared far more than she should. And humans had a terrible habit of sacrificing themselves for people they cared about. A habit she was about to witness firsthand. Inside the reactor chamber, Noah reached the damaged coolant manifold. The radiation warnings screamed in his ears. His vision blurred. His skin felt as though it were burning. Every survival instinct told him to run. But he ignored it. Because somebody had to save the ship. And because humans were stubborn creatures. Sometimes unbelievably stubborn. Outside the chamber, the crew watched in disbelief. One engineer shook his head. No species would do this. Another nodded. It makes no sense. Lyra's eyes never left Noah. Then she whispered something so quietly that almost nobody heard it. That's because he isn't thinking about himself. The technician beside her frowned. What? Lyra looked through the glass. At the human risking his life. At the human everyone underestimated. Noah's hands were already bleeding. The metal casing of the coolant manifold had become so hot that it burned through his protective gloves within seconds. Yet he kept working. Outside the reactor chamber, every crew member watched in stunned silence. The countdown above the fusion core continued. 5:11, 5:10, 5:09. Every second felt heavier than the last. The reactor pulsed like a dying star. Each pulse shook the floor. Each pulse pushed the ship closer to destruction. Inside the chamber, Noah forced himself to focus. Pain didn't matter. Fear didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was stopping the reactor before it killed everyone aboard. He reached for a damaged conduit. The moment his fingers touched it, a violent electrical surge exploded through the chamber. Blue energy erupted across the walls. The blast threw Noah backward. His body slammed into a support column. The observation room gasped. Several crew members turned away. Certain he was dead. For 3 horrible seconds, Noah didn't move. The chamber remained silent. Slowly, painfully. He pushed himself back to his feet. The room froze. Nobody understood what they were seeing. A Carthan security officer stared in disbelief. That hit should have killed him. Nobody argued. Because it should have. Even Lyra looked shaken. Noah wiped blood from his mouth. Then returned to work. As if nothing had happened. The officer looked at Lyra. Why? She didn't answer immediately. Her silver eyes remained fixed on the human. Finally she spoke. Because humans are strange. The officer frowned. That's not an explanation. No. Her voice grew quieter. It never is. Inside the chamber, Noah finally reached the damaged control relay. His vision blurred again. Warning symbols danced across his retinal display. Radiation exposure critical. Cellular damage detected. Medical intervention required. He ignored all of it, because there wasn't time. The relay had been deliberately destroyed. The sabotage was precise. Professional. Whoever did this knew exactly how reactors worked. Noah's stomach tightened. This wasn't random piracy. Someone wanted the Horizon Drift dead. And someone wanted everyone aboard dead with it. Question was why. His thoughts were interrupted by another reactor surge. The chamber lights exploded. Metal screamed. The fusion core brightened. The countdown accelerated. Fo2. Fro1. 4 o'clock. Outside the chamber, panic spread through engineering. The chief engineer looked horrified. It's getting worse. One technician backed away from the observation window. We need escape pods. There aren't enough. Silence followed. Everyone already knew that. The Horizon Drift carried thousands of people. The pods could save only a fraction. Fear settled across the room. Then a loud metallic crash echoed through the chamber. Everyone looked up. Support beam had collapsed. Directly toward Noah. Someone screamed. The beam struck the floor with enough force to crack reinforced steel. Dust filled the chamber. For several terrible seconds, Noah disappeared. Nobody could see him. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then a shape emerged from the smoke. Walking. Limping. But walking. Noah stepped back into view. The room stared. One young engineer looked ready to cry. How is he still alive? Nobody had an answer. Because logic had stopped applying several disasters ago. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Relief washed across her face. The reaction didn't go unnoticed. The chief engineer looked at her carefully. You care about him. She opened her eyes. Her expression hardened instantly. Focus on the reactor. But the answer was obvious. Far more obvious than she realized. The countdown continued. 327, 326, 325. Noah finally accessed the main coolant regulator. The heart of the problem. The sabotage wasn't simple damage. Entire systems had been rewritten. Security protocols erased. Control pathways rerouted. Someone had spent months preparing this. And suddenly Noah noticed something strange. Symbol. Tini. Hidden inside the system logs. Most people would never have noticed it. But Noah did. The symbol resembled a silver star surrounded by circles. The moment he saw it, his stomach dropped. 'Cause he had seen it before. Recently. Very recently. On Lyra's personal equipment. His mind raced. What was the connection? Why was the same symbol appearing here? And why had Lyra looked terrified when he touched her armor earlier that week? Questions flooded his mind. But there was no time for answers. The reactor surged again. Noah returned to work. One wire. One circuit. One damaged regulator at a time. Outside engineering, the battle worsened. Pirate vessels continued hammering the Horizon Drift. Hull breaches spread across multiple decks. Security teams fought boarding parties. Civilians hid wherever they could. The ship was losing. Badly. Far away, aboard the pirate flagship, Commander Varek watched calmly. A holographic display floated before him. Showing Noah. Showing Lyra. Showing everything. An officer approached. The reactor sabotage failed. I know. The humans survived. I know. The officer hesitated. Confusion crossed his face. Then why are you smiling? Commander Varek folded his hands. Because this changes nothing. He enlarged Lyra's image. The silver-eyed woman appeared above the table. The heir is still aboard that ship. The officers fell silent. Even speaking about her felt dangerous. For thousands of years, stories had circulated throughout the galaxy. Stories about the sovereigns. A civilization so powerful that entire star systems once obeyed them. Then they vanished. Destroyed. Erased. At least officially. But if Lyra truly carried sovereign blood, everything would change. Wars would begin. Governments would collapse. Empires would panic. And Varek intended to profit from every second of the chaos. A warning officer interrupted his thoughts. "Commander." "What?" "Our scanners detected unusual biological readings." Varek frowned. "From whom?" The officer enlarged Noah's file. "The human mechanic." Varek studied the information. Then his expression changed. For the first time. Concern. "That's impossible." The officer nodded nervously. "We checked 3 times. Humans should have been dead after that level of radiation exposure. No known species could survive it. Yet Noah remained alive. Injured, but alive." Varek stared at the data. A feeling he rarely experienced settled into his chest. Unease. Back aboard the Horizon Drift, Noah finally connected the last damaged conduit. The reactor's energy output stabilized slightly. Not enough. The silence inside engineering felt heavier than the battle outside. Every eye was locked on Lyra. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Commander Varek's message still echoed through the ship. "Surrender the sovereign heir." The words refused to disappear. Noah looked through the observation glass. The reactor chamber blurred around him. Not because of heat. Not because of radiation. 'Cause suddenly everything made sense. The secrecy. The fear. The questions Lyra never answered. The strange symbol. The impossible strength. She wasn't hiding from her past. She was running from it. And now it had finally caught her. Outside the chamber, the crew slowly backed away from Lyra. Not aggressively. Fearfully. Like people standing too close to a sleeping predator. The chief engineer swallowed. "Lyra." She closed her eyes. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she nodded. "It's true." Nobody breathed. The admission hit harder than any explosion. A young technician shook his head. "No." His voice cracked. "The sovereigns are extinct." "So I was told." The technician looked horrified. "You mean the stories are real?" Lyra stared at the floor. "The stories are worse than reality." Fear spread across the room. Noah saw it happening. People weren't looking at her like a friend anymore. They were looking at her like history. Like a living weapon. Like something dangerous. Something unknown. And unknown things terrified people. Another explosion rocked the ship. The moment shattered. Warning lights flashed. The battle continued. But now a different danger existed aboard the Horizon Drift. Distrust. Commander Varek had planted it perfectly. Inside the reactor chamber, Noah finally activated the repaired coolant network. The system hummed. Pressure levels stabilized. Containment fields strengthened. The countdown slowed again. 147. 146. 145. Not enough. The reactor was still dying. Noah cursed under his breath. There had to be another failure somewhere. Then he saw it. Hidden beneath dozens of corrupted system files. A secondary sabotage protocol. His blood ran cold. The entire reactor core had been programmed to overload. Even if he repaired everything else, the ship was still doomed, unless somebody manually reset the core. From inside the central containment ring, Noah immediately checked the distance. Then his heart sank. The containment ring sat directly beside the fusion core. Radiation levels there were fatal. Not dangerous. Not severe. Fatal. Certain death. No protective suit aboard the ship could survive it. No species in the galaxy could survive it. The realization hit him hard. There was only one way to save the Horizon Drift. And whoever did it wasn't coming back. Outside the chamber, Lyra noticed his expression. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The door opened. Noah staggered out. Several crew members rushed toward him. His skin was pale. Blood stained his uniform. But he ignored everyone. His eyes found Lyra. Immediately. "What happened?" she asked. Noah hesitated, then told the truth. "The reactor can still explode." The room fell silent again. The chief engineer looked sick. "What do we do?" Noah stared toward the reactor. Nobody liked the answer. Especially him. "There has to be a manual reset." The chief engineer checked the schematics. 10 seconds later his face turned white. "No." Noah already knew. The engineer shook his head. "Whoever enters that containment ring dies." Nobody spoke. Because everyone understood. A terrible choice had appeared. Save the ship. Or save the person entering the reactor. Not both. The countdown continued. 119. 118. 117. Lyra stepped forward. "I'll do it." Noah looked at her. "No." Her silver eyes narrowed. "No. No." The answer surprised everyone, including Lyra. "You don't understand," she said. "I understand perfectly." "Noah, you stay here." The room stared. The chief engineer stared. Even Lyra stared. The human was arguing with someone powerful enough to crush reinforced steel with her bare hands. And he didn't seem remotely concerned. Lyra's voice hardened. "I am the only one who can survive long enough." Noah laughed. A tired laugh. A human laugh. The kind that appeared when people were terrified but refused to show it. "You've known me 6 months. What does that have to do with anything?" He smiled. "Then you should know by now that telling me not to do something is a terrible strategy." For 1 second Lyra almost smiled. Then the reality returned. The countdown. The battle. The impossible choice. "Noah." Her voice softened. "Don't." The single word carried more emotion than anything she had ever said to him. Noah understood instantly. She wasn't afraid of losing the ship. She was afraid of losing him. And somehow that mattered more. Across the room, several crew members exchanged looks. They understood too. The realization changed something. Not just between Noah and Lyra. Throughout engineering. Because they were witnessing something aliens rarely understood. Human loyalty. Humans formed bonds quickly. Illogically. Powerfully. And once those bonds formed, humans would walk into hell for them. The reactor alarm interrupted the moment. 056. 055. 054. Time was running out. Suddenly the ship lurched violently. Everyone lost balance. Several consoles exploded. Emergency lights died. Darkness filled the room. A second later backup systems activated. The battle had reached a new level. The security channel came alive. "Enemy boarding teams have breached Deck 7. Another voice followed. "Deck 9 has fallen." Then another. "They're heading toward engineering." Fear spread instantly. Commander Varek wasn't waiting anymore. He was coming for Lyra. Noah looked toward the tactical display. Dozens of enemy life signs moved through the ship. Fast, determined, relentless. The situation had become impossible. A dying reactor. An invading army. And a secret capable of shaking the galaxy. The horizon drift was out of options. Then Lyra made a decision. Terrible one. Before anyone could stop her, she reached beneath her damaged chest plate. A hidden compartment opened. Inside rested a small silver object. The symbol Noah had seen before. The same symbol that terrified entire civilizations. The room became silent. Even the reactor alarms seemed distant. The object began glowing. Softly at first. Then brighter. And brighter. Ancient symbols appeared across its surface. Noah stared. "What is that?" Lyra looked at him. For the first time since they met. No lies. No secrets. No walls. Only truth. "My inheritance." The object activated. The reactor cracked. For one horrifying second nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody spoke. The glowing fracture spread across the fusion core like lightning trapped inside glass. Alarms erupted. Emergency lights flashed. The entire horizon drift shook violently. Crew members stumbled. Consoles exploded. Steam burst from ruptured pipes. And deep inside the ship, something ancient woke up. "No!" the chief engineer whispered. His face had gone completely pale. The fusion core was beyond failure, beyond repair, beyond hope. The ship had seconds left. Only seconds. Every calculation, every simulation, every law of physics pointed toward the same conclusion. The horizon drift was about to die. And everyone aboard would die with it. Noah stared at the reactor, then at Lyra, then back at the reactor. His exhausted mind raced. There had to be something. Anything. Solution. Chance. A miracle. But miracles didn't exist. At least that was what the galaxy believed. Humans believed something different. Humans believed impossible things could happen if somebody refused to quit. The reactor crack widened. A violent pulse of energy exploded through engineering. The blast threw crew members across the room. Several monitors shattered. The deck buckled beneath their feet. The ship groaned like a wounded animal. And suddenly Lyra understood something. The realization hit her harder than any weapon. The silver artifact, the sovereign archive, the hidden coordinates. None of it mattered. Not if everyone died here. Not if Noah died. Her silver eyes locked onto the reactor. Then onto the artifact in her hand. A possibility appeared. Dangerous. Terrifying. And perhaps the only chance remaining. Noah. He looked at her. What? The artifact can stabilize the core. Hope flashed through the room. Then disappeared. Because Lyra wasn't smiling. She looked devastated. Noah immediately noticed. What aren't you telling me? For several seconds she remained silent. Then she answered. The artifact needs a living neural link. Nobody understood. Noah did. His stomach dropped. A person. Lyra nodded. The room became silent again. The artifact could save the ship. But somebody had to connect to it. Directly. And everyone could see from Lyra's expression what came next. The connection would be permanent. Fatal. The chief engineer stepped backward. No. Lyra looked at the reactor. The ship survives. And the person. Her silence was answer enough. Noah closed his eyes briefly. Of course there was a sacrifice involved. The universe seemed addicted to those. Outside the ship, pirate vessels continued firing. Inside the ship, boarding parties pushed closer toward engineering. Every route ended in disaster, unless somebody made a choice. Then Lyra stepped forward. I'll do it. No. The answer came instantly. Lyra turned. Noah was already shaking his head. You don't get to make that decision. It has to be me. No. Her voice hardened. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Noah. You stay. The room stared again. Humans. Nobody could ever predict them. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Why? The question carried anger. Confusion. Noah laughed softly. Not because anything was funny. Because he was terrified. And humans often laughed when fear became too large to hide. Because that's what humans do. Nobody understood. So he explained. We protect people. The chief engineer stared. Several crew members lowered their eyes. Noah continued. That's our thing. Lyra felt her throat tighten. Noah. The human smiled. A tired smile. A genuine one. You spent months protecting everyone else. He pointed toward the artifact. My turn. Before anybody could stop him, he took it from her hands. The room exploded into shouting. Protests, warnings, arguments. Noah ignored all of them. Because the decision was already made. Because deep down he had known for several minutes what was coming. And because somebody had to save the ship. Humans always stepped forward when nobody else could. It wasn't bravery. Not exactly. It was simply what happened when people mattered more than survival. The reactor crack widened again. The ship shook violently. The countdown systems were gone now. There was no countdown left. Only catastrophe. Lyra grabbed Noah's arm. Her grip trembled. For the first time since meeting her, the legendary sovereign heir looked completely helpless. Tears filled her eyes. "You can't." Noah looked at her, then smiled. "Watch me." Before she could stop him, he ran. Straight toward the reactor. Straight toward certain death. Engineering erupted into chaos. Several people tried chasing him. Nobody reached him. The reactor chamber door slammed shut, locking behind him. Inside, temperatures climbed instantly. Radiation warnings screamed. The fusion core looked like a miniature sun preparing to explode. Noah forced himself forward. One step, then another. Every muscle burned. Every breath hurt. Yet he kept moving. Outside the chamber, Lyra stared through the glass. Fear consumed her. Real fear. Not for herself. For him. And suddenly she understood something that no sovereign teacher had ever explained. Power wasn't what made humans dangerous. Technology wasn't what made humans dangerous. Strength wasn't what made humans dangerous. Love was. Humans loved with terrifying intensity. Friends, family, strangers, entire worlds. And once they chose something to protect, nothing could stop them. Inside the chamber, Noah reached the fusion core. The artifact glowed brighter. Silver energy flooded the room. Ancient symbols surrounded him. For a brief moment, the artifact scanned his mind. His memories, his fears, his hopes. Then something unexpected happened. The artifact paused. Every sovereign device in history had rejected non-sovereign users. Every single one. Yet this time, didn't. The ancient technology accepted him. Engineering monitors exploded with readings. The chief engineer stared in disbelief. Impossible. Lyra looked up. The artifact was synchronizing. With a human. Something that should never have happened. The silver light intensified. The reactor cracks stopped spreading. And slowly, painfully, the damage began reversing. Crew members gasped. The fusion core stabilized. Energy levels normalized. Containment fields returned. The impossible was happening. The ship was surviving. But inside the chamber, Noah collapsed. The artifact drained everything. His strength, his energy, his consciousness. The price was being paid. And everyone could see it. Especially Lyra. Tears streamed down her face. 3 weeks after the Battle of the Horizon Drift, the galaxy was no longer the same. News traveled faster than war. And the story spread everywhere. A hidden sovereign heir had been found. Ancient sovereign archives had awakened. A pirate fleet had been defeated. And somehow, at the center of it all stood an ordinary human mechanic named Noah Hayes. Entire governments dismissed the reports at first. Then the evidence arrived. Sensor logs, battle recordings, verified military scans. The impossible became fact. A human had successfully synchronized with sovereign technology. Something no known species had ever accomplished. Panic followed. Then fear. Then curiosity. Across the galaxy, leaders asked the same question. What exactly were humans? Noah himself had no idea his name had become famous. At that moment he was still unconscious. The medical wing remained silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Doctors moved carefully around his bed. None of them understood what they were seeing. His body should have failed days ago. Radiation exposure alone should have killed him. The artifact synchronization should have killed him. The reactor chamber should have killed him. Yet somehow he remained alive. A senior physician studied the readings. Then shook his head. I've never seen anything like this. Neither had anyone else. Humans continued breaking expectations. Even while unconscious. Outside the room, Lyra waited. She had barely slept. Every few hours she asked the same question. Any change? And every time she received the same answer. No. The waiting hurt more than any battle. For years she had survived assassins, wars, betrayals, and exile. None of it compared to sitting helplessly outside a hospital room. Days passed. Then one morning everything changed. Noah opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was a ceiling. The second thing he saw was Lyra asleep in a chair beside him. The third thing he noticed was that every muscle in his body hurt. Ow! The single word woke her instantly. Lyra jumped to her feet. For several seconds she simply stared. Then relief flooded her face. Noah! He smiled weakly. Good morning. Before he could say anything else, she hugged him. Hard. Hard enough to nearly stop his breathing. Noah laughed despite the pain. Okay. Definitely awake now. For the first time in years, Lyra laughed. A genuine laugh. Not the guarded smile he had grown used to. Real one. And somehow that felt like victory. Hours later, the captain gathered the crew. Everyone wanted to see him. The engineers. The technicians. The security officers. Even civilians from other decks. The room became crowded almost immediately. Noah looked around nervously. What is this? The chief engineer smiled. A thank you. Noah frowned. For what? The room erupted with laughter. Several crew members shook their heads. One elderly technician stepped forward. For saving our lives. Others nodded. Then something unexpected happened. One by one, crew members began placing small items on the table beside him. Tool, medal, family photograph, patch from a security uniform, personal treasures, tokens of gratitude. Noah stared in confusion. What am I supposed to do with all this? The captain smiled. Keep it. The human mechanic looked genuinely overwhelmed, because humans often struggled with praise. Especially when they believed they had simply done what was necessary. Far away, however, darker events were unfolding. Commander Varek had survived. And he had not forgotten. The failure haunted him. His fleet had been shattered. His plans ruined. His reputation damaged. But most importantly, the sovereign heir remained free. Varek stood inside the command chamber of a massive warship. A transmission flickered before him. Representatives from powerful empires appeared. Political leaders, military commanders, corporate rulers, all watching, all listening. Is it true? One demanded. Varek nodded. The heir lives. Another leaned forward. And the archives? Activated. The room became silent. Then came the final question. The human. For several seconds Varek said nothing. Then he answered honestly. He is the greater threat. The leaders exchanged uneasy looks. Because deep down they had reached the same conclusion. The sovereigns possessed ancient technology. But humans possessed something harder to predict. Determination. Loyalty. Oh. Qualities that repeatedly changed history. Qualities no empire could control. Back aboard the Horizon Drift, Lyra stood beside an observation window. Stars drifted silently beyond the glass. Noah joined her. For a while neither spoke. Then he asked the question that had waited between them for months. What happens now? Lyra looked toward the stars. My people are waiting. The survivors. She nodded. Noah smiled. So we go find them. Lyra looked surprised. We? You thought I was staying behind. A small smile appeared. You nearly died. And? She laughed softly. Humans. Impossible. Ridiculous. Wonderful. Together they stared into the darkness ahead. Somewhere beyond those stars waited hidden worlds. Ancient secrets. New allies. New enemies. And perhaps the greatest adventure either of them could imagine. For the first time in thousands of years, the sovereigns had hope. For the first time in their history, humanity had the galaxy's attention. And neither civilization would ever be the same again. Because legends are not born from power. They are born from choices. The choice to stand when others fall. The choice to protect when others flee. The choice to hope when hope seems impossible. That was why the galaxy remembered Noah Hayes. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was the smartest, but because when everyone else saw an impossible situation, he stepped forward and proved that impossible was only the beginning.